What's up guys, Thomas here from Trainfuly. In this video, I'm showing you another lower body resistance training progression, the transverse plane lunge. All right guys, so the transverse plane lunge is the most advanced exercise in our lower body resistance training progressions. If you recall, in two previous videos, I showed you first how to do a sagittal plane lunge and all of its progressions, and then a frontal plane lunge and all of its progressions. Now, in that frontal plane lunge video, I also show you what the different planes of motion are. So if you haven't seen those videos yet, go back and watch them as well. I provided links to them in the description below. So this exercise targets the gluteus maximus and the gluteus medius. I'm going to show you four progressions. We'll begin with the transverse plane step through lunge. Then we'll progress to the transverse plane step through lunge to balance, then to the transverse plane step back lunge, and finally to the transverse plane step back lunge to balance. By working your way through the transverse plane lunge progressions, you will develop stabilization and strength in the transverse plane. And this is really important because most of the movement patterns in golf occur in the transverse plane. So this exercise will have a big impact on your performance, both in terms of distance and control. This is the transverse plane step through lunge. So I want you to begin with your feet directly under your hips and feet pointing straight ahead. We'll put your hands on your hips. I'm going to take a quarter turn to the right, lunge, and then step through and stabilize on both feet. So it looks like this. The form is really important. We're going to pivot on the ball of the left foot, landing on the heel of the right foot. So you can see that pivot. Also, I want your torso and your lower leg to remain parallel. So I'll show you from a different angle here. If I turn this way, you can see my lower leg and my torso remain roughly parallel. And if I show you from this angle here, my ankle, knee, and hip all remain in perfect alignment, and my feet stay hip width apart. Okay, so we would do 8 to 12 repetitions on each side. You could do all one side, or we could alternate side to side. So that would look like this, and then step back to the middle, and then pivot this way. Again, 8 to 12 repetitions per side. The first progression is to the transverse plane step through lunge to balance. The form is exactly the same. I want your feet directly under your hips, pointing straight ahead, hands on your hips. You're going to take a quarter turn to the right, pivot on the ball of your left foot, lunge, step through, and now you're going to balance on that right leg for 3 seconds, pulling your belly button in, squeezing your glutes. 1 to 3 sets of 8 to 12 repetitions per side. You can do all one side and then the other, or you can alternate side to side, which would look like this. The next progression is to the transverse plane step back lunge. So with the first two exercises, we had to lower ourselves and stabilize in the transverse plane, but then we were standing up in the sagittal plane. With this exercise, we're lowering ourselves in the transverse plane and then stepping back in the transverse plane as well. So it looks like this. Same starting position, feet under your hips, pointing straight ahead, hands on your hips, rotate down, lunge, and rotate back to the starting position. So we're rotating on the way down and rotating on the way back. So not only do we have to generate more force because we're pushing ourselves back to the starting position, but we have to generate that force in the transverse plane because you have to rotate to get back to this position here. And again, this is really important for golf because most of the movement patterns in golf occur in the transverse plane. Now with this exercise, I want you to do 1 to 3 sets of 8 to 12 repetitions on each side. We can do all one side and then the other, or alternate side to side. Now we have our final progression. This is the transverse plane step back lunge to balance. This is a very advanced exercise. I do want you to try to work your way up to this over the next couple days or weeks. If you need help with this, feel free to reach out to me. If you can do this exercise correctly, that demonstrates you have a lot of stabilization and strength in the transverse plane. Our starting position is exactly the same. Feet pointing straight ahead, directly under our hips, hands on our hips. We'll take that quarter turn, lunge, push yourself back up, and now we're going to balance on this leg for 3 seconds. Contract the glutes, contract the core, drop back down, lunge, up again, 3 seconds. I want you to do 1 to 3 sets of 8 to 12 repetitions on each side. Now with this progression, you'll have to do all one side and then the other. 8 to 12 repetitions on each side. All right, guys. So just like with the sagittal plane lunge and frontal plane lunge, you can add weight to any version of the transverse plane lunge. Adding weight increases the resistance and will cause more of a strength adaptation. Now, if you're looking for a golf fitness program that is designed for the biomechanics and movement patterns of golf, you can find that over at trainfuly.com. Also, if you like our videos, you'll like our podcast as well, check it out and subscribe, the Trainfuly Golf Fitness Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching.